The wind howled through the cracked dome of the abandoned outpost as Lieutenant Alex Miller pressed his back against the cold metal wall, breath coming in ragged gasps. Blood trickled from a gash above his eye, but he couldn't afford to wipe it away, not with his rifle trained on the entrance. The mission was supposed to be simple: scout the perimeter of this derelict station on the edge of contested space, report back to command. Nobody mentioned the possibility of an alien royal entourage. "Come out with your hands visible," he called, voice steadier than he felt. "I won't ask twice." The shadows at the doorway shifted. Someone moved with a fluid grace that seemed almost impossible, given the planet's heavy gravity. A soft blue light began to glow, illuminating the chamber with an eerie, pulsating radiance. "You wouldn't shoot an unarmed diplomat, would you, Alex?" The voice struck him like a physical blow. Familiar yet impossible. A ghost from 5 years ago, from a time before the war, before humanity and the Arcsani became mortal enemies, before everything changed. Talia. The name escaped his lips before he could stop it. The figure stepped into the light, and Alex felt his world tilt. Princess Talia of the 7th House of Arxa stood before him, tall and regal despite the circumstances. Her skin shimmered with the faint iridescence characteristic of her species, violet eyes regarding him with an emotion he couldn't quite place. Was it anger? Sadness? Relief? You remember, it wasn't a question. Her translator collar hummed softly as it converted her native clicks and whistles into English. "I wasn't certain you would." Alex lowered his weapon slightly, mind racing. How could he forget? 5 years ago, he'd been part of the first human delegation to Arxa Prime, a bright-eyed lieutenant, chosen for his diplomatic skills and scientific background. Talia had been his counterpart, assigned to introduce humans to Arcsani culture. What began as formal diplomatic exchanges soon blossomed into something neither of them had anticipated: a genuine connection across species. Late nights discussing philosophy, early mornings exploring Arxa's crystal forests, sharing stories of their childhoods on worlds light years apart. Until the incident at Proxima Station changed everything. "What are you doing here?" Alex demanded, forcing himself back to the present. "This sector is a war zone. Your presence here violates at least 6 articles of the Centauri Accords." Talia's expression hardened. "As does your military occupation of this outpost. It belongs to neither of us. I could ask you the same question." A distant explosion shook the station, sending dust cascading from the ceiling. The war wouldn't wait for their reunion. "I'm just following orders," Alex said, immediately hating how hollow the words sounded. "As you were at Proxima." Talia's words cut deeper than any weapon could. "When your kind fired upon our medical vessels. When 2,000 of my people, including my younger brother, died in the vacuum." Alex felt his throat tighten. "That's not how it happened. We received intelligence that—" "False intelligence," Talia interrupted, "fabricated to justify aggression. Some among your military wanted this war. Others among my kind welcomed it too. But I never did. Neither did you." Another explosion, closer this time. The station's ancient systems wailed in protest, emergency lights flickering to life along the corridors. "We have 20 minutes before reinforcements from both our sides arrive," Talia said, her voice softening. 20 minutes to decide whether we continue this senseless conflict or—" She hesitated. "Or what?" Alex found himself asking, despite everything. From within her ceremonial robes, Talia withdrew a small crystalline device, an Arcsani data core. Even from across the room, Alex could see it pulsing with information. "This contains evidence," she said, "proof that Proxima was orchestrated by extremists on both sides. Communications logs, order chains, financial transactions, enough to prove that neither of our governments officially sanctioned what happened, but enough to implicate powerful individuals who have been profiting from our mutual destruction." Alex stared at the device, years of military discipline warring with the memory of who he once was, who they both had been before the stars between their worlds turned blood-red with war. "Why me?" he asked finally. "Why now?" Talia stepped closer, close enough that he could see the faint patterns that swirled beneath her skin, patterns he had once spent hours memorizing during peaceful days that now seemed to belong to another lifetime. "Because despite everything, when our intelligence identified you as the human soldier assigned to this region, I remembered the way you looked at the stars. You never saw them as something to conquer, only as bridges between worlds." She extended her hand, the data core nestled in her palm. "And because I've spent 5 years trying to forget you, only to realize I cannot hate someone whose soul I once knew as well as my own." The station trembled again, more violently this time. Warning klaxons blared. "We don't have much time," Talia said urgently. "What happens next depends on you, Alex. On us. The truth about Proxima won't bring back the dead, but it might prevent millions more from joining them." Alex looked from the data core to Talia's face, to the eyes that had once reflected nebulae and possibility rather than the cold void of war. Something long dormant stirred within him, a memory of who he had been, of what he had believed in before duty and revenge consumed him. Outside, the distinctive roar of approaching ships cut through the thin atmosphere. Human or Arxani, perhaps both. Soon this forgotten outpost would become yet another battlefield in a war that had already claimed too many lives. In that moment, suspended between past and future, between duty and truth, Alex made his decision. He reached for the data core, his fingers brushing against Talia's for the first time in 5 years. Contact that once sparked wonder now generated something different, something both fragile and fierce. Not quite trust, not anymore, but perhaps its precursor, possibility. "If this is a trap," he began, "then we both die here," Talia finished simply. "But if it isn't, then everything changes," Alex whispered. The distant ships grew louder. Time had run out. With his free hand, Alex activated his emergency beacon, not the standard military frequency, but the old diplomatic channel from before the war. If any of his former colleagues from the peace effort were still monitoring it. "What happens now?" Talia asked, her translator barely keeping up with the rapid clicks of her native tongue. Alex secured the data core and met her gaze steadily. "Now we run. Together. And we pray that we're fast enough to outpace the past that's chasing us both." The station shuddered one final time as the ancient ceiling began to collapse, and with it, the boundary between enemies and allies, between what was and what could be. Debris crashed around them as Alex grabbed Talia's arm, pulling her toward the maintenance corridor he'd mapped during his initial recon. The touch sent an electric jolt through him. Her skin temperature several degrees cooler than a human's, a reminder of all their differences. Yet in this moment, those differences meant nothing compared to the threat bearing down on them from above. "This way," he shouted over the cacophony of alarms and crumbling infrastructure. "There's a service tunnel that leads to the old docking bay." Talia matched his pace effortlessly, her species' natural agility evident even in crisis. "Your people will have it surrounded," she countered, ducking beneath a hanging power conduit. "Not if we move fast enough. The tunnel network is shielded. They won't detect our life signs until we're already there." The floor beneath them groaned, metal stressed beyond its tolerance. Without warning, a section gave way, opening into darkness below. Alex stumbled, momentarily losing his grip on Talia as the edge crumbled beneath his boot. For a heartbeat, he was falling, the black void reaching up to claim him, until a strong grip seized his wrist. Talia leaned precariously over the edge, her body anchored against a support beam, holding him with surprising strength. Their eyes locked as she pulled him to safety, violet meeting brown, neither speaking the obvious. She could have let him fall, ended one more human soldier, and kept the data core for herself. But she hadn't. "That's twice I've saved your life," she said as they continued running, her translator giving the words a sardonic edge. "Once at the Crystal Falls on Arxa, and now." Alex remembered. He'd slipped while they were hiking, the glass-like terrain treacherous to human feet. She'd caught him then too, one hand gripping his jacket while she laughed at his clumsiness. Before everything shattered. "We're even," he replied, the old memory burning. "I got you off Centauri Station before the quarantine protocols activated." The look she gave him was unreadable. "I haven't forgotten." They reached the maintenance shaft, a narrow tube barely wide enough for a human, let alone Talia's taller frame. Alex punched in the override code he'd memorized, praying the ancient system would respond. The panel flickered, then glowed green. "How did you know the security codes?" Talia asked, suspicion edging back into her voice. "This outpost was built before the war, joint human and Arcsani construction." Alex squeezed into the tunnel, the tight space making each movement a challenge. "I studied the original blueprints. The codes haven't been changed since initial installation." "Typical human oversight," Talia muttered, but he could hear the grudging admiration beneath her criticism. As they crawled through the tunnel, the sounds of destruction grew distant, replaced by the hollow echo of their breathing and the occasional electrical spark from damaged systems. In this confined space, with nothing but darkness ahead and behind, Alex felt the weight of everything unsayed between them. 5 years, he finally spoke, keeping his voice low. 5 years of fighting a war that neither of us wanted. How many have died, Talia? She was silent for so long he thought she might not answer. When she did, her voice was heavy with a grief that transcended species. Too many. The death toll on Arcsani colonies reached 4 million last month. Yours? 6 million confirmed. Another 2 million missing. The numbers hung between them, cold and clinical, yet representing an ocean of suffering that stretched across the stars. And for what? Talia's voice cracked slightly. Resources we could have shared. Territory neither species truly needs. Pride. Alex had asked himself the same questions countless times during sleepless nights aboard military vessels, during the quiet moments between battles when doubt crept in like a poison. How had he gone from a diplomat seeking understanding to a soldier with blood on his hands? "The data core," he said, changing the subject. "How did you get it?" Talia's breath hitched, and even without seeing her face, Alex knew she was deciding how much to reveal. "My position gives me certain access, and not everyone in the 7th House supports this conflict. My mother was always skeptical of the official narrative about Proxima, before she died." "Your mother died." Alex stopped abruptly, causing Talia to bump into him. Even through their heavy clothing, he felt her tremble slightly at the mention. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." "Why would you?" Her voice was flat. "She was just another casualty in the Battle of Rigel. One of thousands, your fleet's 3rd offensive." The accusation stung because Alex had been there, had helped coordinate that offensive, believing it necessary, believing the intelligence that claimed the Arcsani were developing biological weapons at Rigel. The intelligence that, if the data core was legitimate, had been fabricated. "I was there," he admitted, forcing himself to continue crawling forward. We all thought we were preventing something worse." Talia's silence was deafening. After several minutes, they reached a junction where the tunnel widened enough for them to sit side by side. Alex checked his tactical display. 15 minutes until reinforcements arrived. They needed to rest, if only briefly. In the dim emergency lighting, Talia's features were shadowed, but her eyes glowed with their natural bioluminescence, a trait that had fascinated him during their time together on Arxa. How many nights had they spent talking beneath her world's triple moons, her eyes reflecting the stars above? How many promises had they made about building bridges between their species? "Show me," Alex said suddenly. "Show me what's on the data core." Talia reached into her robes and withdrew the crystal device again. It pulsed with soft light as she activated it, projecting a holographic display into the space between them. Alex's breath caught as images and text began to scroll. Communication logs, financial transactions, military orders with signatures he recognized. names of generals he'd served under, politicians he'd respected, alongside their Arxani counterparts. "This is," he began, but couldn't finish. "Treason," Talia supplied, "on both sides. A conspiracy to ensure our species remained in conflict, to maintain power, to control resources, to justify military expansion." Alex's eyes fixed on one particular document, the tactical assessment of Proxima Station that had initiated the war. The signature at the bottom belonged to Admiral Harrison, his former mentor, the man who had recruited him from the diplomatic corps into military intelligence after the incident. They knew, he whispered, the realization like ice in his veins. They knew the Arxani ships at Proxima were medical vessels. They knew your brother was aboard. Talia's voice was steady, but her hands shook. Just as certain members of my government knew the retaliatory strike would target civilian colonies, they wanted this war. Alex, they engineered it. A distant explosion rocked the tunnel, sending dust sifting down on them. Their time was running out. "If we release this," Alex said slowly, "it destroys everything. The power structures on both sides collapse. The war ends, but what comes after? Chaos, perhaps," Talia admitted. "Justice, hopefully. Peace, eventually." Their eyes met in the dim light, human and alien, yet in this moment, more alike than different. Both betrayed by those they had trusted, both carrying the weight of actions taken in service to a lie. "There's more," Talia said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "Information about a weapon being developed at the Cygnus Black site. Something that could end not just this war, but both our species entirely." Alex's blood ran cold. What kind of weapon? "The data is incomplete, but it involves quantum manipulation of shared dimensional space, if deployed." She didn't need to finish. Alex understood the implications. Such technology could unravel the very fabric of reality in areas where their two species' worlds intersected. "We need to get off this station," he said with renewed urgency. "Now." As if in response, his tactical display flashed a warning. Multiple ships entering orbit, both human and Arxani signatures. The hunt was beginning. In the narrow confines of the maintenance tunnel, with danger closing in from all sides, Alex and Talia shared a look of grim determination. The data core between them held the truth that could save both their worlds, or destroy them both if it fell into the wrong hands. "Do you trust me?" Talia asked, the question loaded with 5 years of conflict, pain, and unresolved emotions. Alex didn't hesitate. With this, yes. With everything else, he left the thought unfinished. She nodded, understanding the complexity of his answer. "It's enough. For now." Another explosion, closer this time. The station was coming apart around them. "Time to run again," Alex said, checking his weapon. "Together." Talia's eyes gleamed in the darkness, fierce and determined. Together. Like before. They moved forward into the unknown, two former friends now unlikely allies, carrying a truth too dangerous to ignore and too important to deny. Behind them, the sounds of soldiers, human and Arxani, echoed through the dying station. The hunt had begun. The docking bay doors groaned open, revealing the vast emptiness of space beyond the deteriorating station. Alex and Talia crouched behind a stack of abandoned cargo containers, surveying the area. 3 ships remained intact among the wreckage of what once had been a bustling interspecies transit hub. A small Arxani diplomatic shuttle, clearly Talia's means of arrival, a battered human military transport that Alex had used, and an ancient maintenance vessel that predated the war. "Your shuttle, or mine?" Alex whispered, checking his tactical scanner. "We've got maybe 4 minutes before they breach the eastern corridor." Talia's eyes narrowed as she assessed their options. "Neither. They'll be tracking both." "The maintenance vessel. Can you fly it?" "If it still runs, I can fly it." Alex replied with a confidence born from years of combat piloting. What he didn't mention was how flying anything other than a military craft now felt foreign to his hands, hands that once had been more accustomed to holding scientific instruments than weapons. A series of explosions rocked the station, closer than before. The hunters were getting desperate, destroying sections of the outpost in their search. "Cover me," Talia said, slipping the data core into Alex's palm and pressing his fingers close around it. The brief contact sent a jolt through him that had nothing to do with the tactical situation. "I'll create a diversion." Before he could protest, she had already moved, sliding into the shadows with the natural stealth of her species. Alex wanted to call her back, to tell her it was too dangerous, but the words died in his throat. 5 years of war had taught him that Talia was more than capable of handling herself in combat. He'd seen the aftermath of battles where she had commanded Arcsani forces. Focusing on the mission, Alex made his way toward the maintenance vessel, keeping low and using the scattered debris as cover. The ship looked ancient, its hull marked with the logos of both human and Arcsani engineering corps, a relic from a time when cooperation between their species had seemed possible, even inevitable. The access panel sparked when he tried to activate it, forcing him to manually override the lock. Inside, the cockpit was cramped and outdated, displays flickering with warning messages in both English and the clicking Arcsani script. Alex's fingers moved over the controls, muscle memory from his academy training returning as he initiated the startup sequence. A sudden burst of weapons fire echoed across the docking bay. Alex's head snapped up, searching for Talia among the chaos that had erupted. Through the viewport, he could see figures in human military armor exchanging fire with what appeared to be Arcsani royal guards, both sides having found their way to the bay simultaneously. And there, moving between them with impossible grace, was Talia. She carried no weapon that Alex could see, yet somehow she was managing to direct the fire of both sides away from the maintenance vessel, leading them into a deadly dance of confusion and crossfire. The ship's engines sputtered, then roared to life. Alex opened the comm channel. "Talia, I've got it running. Fall back now." For a heart-stopping moment, he thought she hadn't heard him. Then he saw her change direction, sprinting toward the vessel while both human and Arcsani forces regrouped, suddenly aware they were being manipulated. The loading ramp was barely down when Talia leaped aboard, rolling into the cabin as weapons fire pinged off the hull. Alex slammed the controls to close the ramp and disengaged the docking clamps, sending the ship lurching away from the station. "Can they pursue?" Talia asked, breathing hard as she made her way to the co-pilot's seat. Alex checked the sensors. "Eventually. We've got maybe a 30-minute head start before they can get their ships ready. The real question is where we're going." He patted the pocket containing the data core. "This information is useless if we can't get it to someone who can act on it." Talia's expression darkened. "The list of those we can trust is vanishingly small. On my world, perhaps only my sister remains in a position of influence who isn't implicated. And on mine." Alex trailed off, thinking through the names he'd seen in the files. So many betrayals, reaching to the highest levels of Earth's government. There might be someone. Commander Rice at Ganymede Station. She was always skeptical about how the war started. Kept asking questions until they reassigned her to the outer system. As they cleared the station's gravity well, Alex plotted a course that would take them through a dense asteroid field. Risky navigation that would help mask their trail. The ship shuddered as he pushed its ancient engines beyond their intended capacity. "Will this vessel make it to either destination?" Talia asked, her voice carefully neutral as she studied the ship's failing systems. "No," Alex admitted. "But there's a neutral trading post at Vega's Edge. If we can make it there, we might be able to secure passage on a merchant vessel." What he didn't say was that Vega's Edge was notorious for its bounty hunters and mercenaries. They would be walking into a den of predators, many of whom would happily sell them to the highest bidder, human or Arcsani. But they had no choice. The silence between them grew heavy as the stars streaked past. There was so much left unsaid, so many questions unanswered. Alex found himself stealing glances at Talia when he thought she wasn't looking, noting the new scars that marked her face, the wariness in her posture that hadn't been there before the war. "You keep looking at me," Talia finally said, her translator unable to fully capture the complex emotions in her native clicks and whistles. "Does my appearance disturb you now?" Alex shook his head. "I'm just remembering the diplomat I knew, wondering how much of her remains." Talia's gaze turned toward him, those violet eyes piercing through his carefully constructed defenses. "I was about to ask the same of you, soldier. The Alex Miller who walked with me through the gardens of my homeworld seems very far from the man who now flies this ship with a weapon at his side." The truth of her words stung. War changes people. Does it change them or reveal them? Talia asked softly. "That is what I have often wondered. About my people. About yours." Her voice dropped even lower. "About myself." Before Alex could respond, the ship's sensors blared a warning. He cursed, hands flying over the controls. "What is it?" Talia leaned forward, reading the human displays with practiced ease. "Jump signature. Big one." Alex's mouth went dry as the readings clarified. "It's a dreadnought. Human military. Black Ops designation." Talia's body tensed. "Here. Now. That cannot be coincidence." "No." Alex agreed grimly. "Someone knew exactly where we'd be." A horrible suspicion formed in his mind. "They're tracking the data core itself." Talia's eyes widened in understanding. Of course, information that valuable would be protected, monitored. The dreadnought emerged from jump space directly in their path, a massive shadow eclipsing the stars. Its weapon systems came online, targeting their small vessel with enough firepower to vaporize them instantly. "They're hailing us," Alex said as the comm system lit up. The screen flickered, revealing a face that made Alex's blood run cold. Admiral Harrison, his former mentor, the man whose signature had authorized the attack on Proxima Station. The man who had started the war. "Lieutenant Miller," the admiral said, his voice pleasant as if greeting an old friend. "And Princess Talia of the 7th House. What an unexpected pleasure to find you both alive." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Though I'm afraid I must insist you surrender the stolen property you carry." Immediately, Talia leaned forward, her royal bearing evident even now. "That property belongs to the people you've sacrificed in your manufactured war, Admiral. The millions who have died while you and your conspirators profit." Harrison's expression hardened. "Idealism. How disappointingly predictable from both of you. I had higher hopes for you especially, Miller. You showed such promise." Alex felt a cold rage building inside him. "You used me. You used all of us. I gave you purpose," Harrison countered. "A clear enemy to fight. Humanity has always needed that. A common foe to unite against. Without it, we tear ourselves apart." His gaze shifted to Talia. "Just as your kind does. Your own council members understood this necessity. They embraced it. And the weapon at Cygnus," Alex demanded. "Is that necessary too?" Something flickered across Harrison's face, surprise, quickly masked. "You know less than you think you do, Lieutenant. That weapon is merely insurance, a guarantee that neither side can fully dominate the other." His voice hardened. "Now, I'll give you one chance. Surrender the data core, and you may live. Refuse, and we will open fire." Alex glanced at Talia, a silent question passing between them. She gave an almost imperceptible nod. "We need time to consider your offer, Admiral," Alex said, stalling. Harrison smiled thinly. "You have 2 minutes, Lieutenant, not a second more." The transmission cut. Immediately, Alex's hands flew across the controls, initiating a diagnostic of the ship's jump drive. A desperate gamble. "It won't work," Talia said, reading his intentions. "This ship's jump drive hasn't been used in decades. The power requirements alone." "I know," Alex interrupted. But we don't need a full jump. Just enough of a surge to mask something else. He pulled the data core from his pocket, quickly connecting it to the ship's antiquated communication system. We need to broadcast this. All of it. On every frequency we can access. Understanding dawned in Talia's eyes. They can destroy us, but not the truth. Not if it's already spreading across both our worlds. Alex nodded grimly. Exactly. Help me reconfigure the comm array to boost the signal. Together they worked frantically, fingers flying over controls, repurposing systems never meant to work together. The countdown to Harrison's deadline ticked away mercilessly. 30 seconds, Talia warned, her voice steady despite everything. The ship's systems protested as Alex overrode safety protocols, channeling power from life support and engines into the communications array. The temperature in the cabin began to drop as heating systems failed. Almost there, he muttered, sweat freezing on his brow. We just need tow. The ship rocked violently as a warning shot from the dreadnought struck nearby, deliberately missing them but close enough to send their vessel spinning. Time's up, Lieutenant. Harrison's voice returned, all pretense of civility gone. Prepare to be boarded or destroyed. Your choice. Alex looked at Talia one last time. In her eyes, he saw not the alien princess or the enemy commander, but the person who had once stood beside him beneath strange stars, dreaming of a future where their peoples walked together in peace, a future that had been stolen from them both. Ready? He asked softly. Talia reached across the console, her cool fingers intertwining with his warm human ones, a gesture that bridged species, transcended war, and defied everything that had torn them apart. Ready, she answered, her voice strong and clear. Alex's finger hovered over the broadcast initiation, while Talia's hand moved toward the jump drive override. Together, they were about to change everything or lose everything. The dreadnought's weapons powered up to full capacity, targeting solutions locked on their fragile vessel. In the vast coldness of space, the next few seconds would determine not just their fate, but potentially the future of two civilizations caught in a web of lies. Time seemed to slow as their fingers pressed the controls simultaneously. The ship's systems surged with power redirected from every available source, consoles sparking as circuits overloaded. In that fraction of a second before the dreadnought's weapons could fire, two things happened at once. The data core's contents began broadcasting across every frequency, and the ancient jump drive sputtered to life. The universe distorted around them, stretching and compressing in nauseating waves as the damaged drive struggled to tear a hole in space. Through the viewport, Alex saw the dreadnought's weapons discharge, energy beams cutting through the void directly toward them. Too late to avoid, too powerful to survive. Hold on, he shouted, grabbing Talia as the ship lurched sickeningly sideways into half-jump space, caught between dimensions as the drive failed to complete the transition. The weapon's fire grazed their hull, alarms screaming as sections of the ship depressurized. Emergency bulkheads slammed down, isolating the cockpit as the vessel tumbled uncontrolled through the distorted pocket of reality. Did it work? Talia gasped, pulling herself up from the floor where the impact had thrown her. Blood of an iridescent purple trickled from a cut on her forehead. The broadcast. Did it transmit? Alex checked the fragmented readings on the one console still functioning. Signal went out, but I don't know how far it reached before we jumped. He slammed his fist against the panel in frustration. Damn it. We needed more time. The ship shuddered around them, the hull groaning under stresses it was never designed to withstand. Through the cracked viewport, Alex could see they hadn't fully entered jump space. Instead, they were caught in a pocket between normal space and the jump dimension, a dangerous limbo that could tear their vessel apart. Where are we? Talia moved to his side, staring out at the twisted reality surrounding them. Stars appeared stretched like taffy, colors bleeding into one another in impossible ways. Jump drive failure, Alex explained grimly. We're caught in a dimensional pocket, Not fully in normal space, not fully in jump space. He ran a diagnostic on the remaining systems. Life support's failing. We've got maybe 20 minutes of oxygen. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken emotions. After everything they'd been through, after all they'd risked, to die here in the void between spaces seemed a cruel twist of fate. At least Harrison can't follow us, Talia finally said, her voice steady despite everything. Alex nodded. Small comfort, though if enough of our broadcast got through. He left the thought unfinished, allowing himself a moment of hope. A sudden alarm cut through the silence. The dimensional pocket was collapsing, reality folding back in on itself as the laws of physics reasserted their dominance. The ship would soon be dragged back into normal space, back to where the dreadnought waited. "We need a plan," Alex said, checking their weapons. The standard-issue blaster had enough charge for maybe 6 shots, hardly enough to take on a dreadnought's crew. Talia's eyes narrowed in concentration. The data core, do we still have it? Alex patted his pocket, then felt a surge of panic. The core was gone, likely dislodged during their violent entry into the pocket dimension. He scanned the cockpit frantically, spotting it wedged beneath a console, its crystalline surface cracked but still glowing faintly. "It's damaged," he said, retrieving it carefully. "But still intact." Talia took it from him, examining the hairline fractures spreading across its surface. "The security protocols will be compromised. If I can access the deeper layers of data." Her fingers moved across the crystal with practiced precision, activating sequences invisible to human eyes. "What are you looking for?" Alex asked, dividing his attention between her work and the ship's failing systems. "The weapon at Cygnus," she replied without looking up. "Harrison's reaction when you mentioned it. Something wasn't right. There's more to it than a deterrent." The ship lurched again as the dimensional pocket continued to collapse. External sensors briefly came online, showing they were being drawn back toward normal space, but not where they had left. The turbulence of their failed jump had sent them tumbling through the higher dimensions, about to emerge somewhere else entirely. "We're shifting location," Alex reported, studying the fragmentary readings. "Can't tell exactly where yet, but we're not going back to Harrison." Talia's expression intensified as she worked with the damaged core. "I found something. Coordinates buried in a sublayer of the data, and authorization codes." "For what?" "For Cygnus." Her violet eyes met his, wide with realization. "This isn't just information about the weapon, Alex. It's access to it." The implications hit him like a physical blow. "Someone wanted us to find this, to have this access, or to be caught with it," Talia countered. "To become the perfect scapegoats when the weapon is activated." The ship shuddered violently as reality reasserted itself. The dimensional pocket collapsed completely, throwing them back into normal space with enough force to knock them both to the floor. When Alex pulled himself up to check their position, what he saw through the viewport stole his breath. They had emerged in orbit around a massive gas giant, its swirling atmosphere bands of deep blues and purples, and in low orbit before them floated a station unlike any Alex had ever seen, a twisted amalgamation of human and Arxani architecture, completely dark except for faint lights pulsing at its core. "Cygnus," he whispered in disbelief. "The jump malfunction brought us directly to Cygnus." Talia joined him at the viewport, her face reflecting the eerie glow of the station. "Not malfunction. Guidance. The data core. It must have interacted with the jump drive somehow. Pulled us here." Their damaged ship drifted toward the station, systems too compromised to alter course. As they drew closer, Alex could see the facility appeared abandoned. No external lights, no defense systems activating at their approach, no communication attempts. "I don't understand," he said, checking their scanners. "A weapon this important would be heavily guarded." "Unless it's automated," Talia suggested, "or the guards were evacuated. If the weapon is about to be activated." A chill ran down Alex's spine. Harrison's insurance policy. What if it's not insurance at all? What if they're planning to use it now? Talia's expression hardened with determination. We need to dock and get inside. It may be our only chance to stop it, whatever it is. The ship's navigation system registered an automated docking sequence initiating. The station was pulling them in. Either this was the opportunity they needed, or they were flying directly into a trap. As the docking clamps engaged, Alex checked his weapon one final time. Once we're inside, we'll have no backup, no extraction plan. If we fail, then both our worlds pay the price. Talia finished. She reached out, touching his face in a gesture that transcended species. I never thought my last stand would be alongside a human soldier. Alex caught her hand, the coolness of her skin familiar after all these years. And I never thought I'd die fighting alongside an Arcsani princess. Who said anything about dying? A fierce smile lit her features. We've come too far, Alex Miller. I don't intend to give up now. The airlock cycled, indicating successful docking despite their damaged hull. Beyond it lay the mysterious Cygnus facility, and whatever weapon had been deemed worth sacrificing millions of lives to protect. Alex and Talia moved toward the airlock, united once more after years of conflict. Whatever lay beyond, whatever impossible odds faced them, they would confront it together. As they had once been, as they should have remained. The station's artificial gravity engaged as they stepped through the airlock, the atmosphere breathable but cold. Emergency lighting cast long shadows down empty corridors that branched in all directions. The architecture was disorienting. Human and Arcsani design principles merged in ways that seemed to defy structural logic. This wasn't built by either of our species alone, Talia observed, her voice hushed. This was collaboration, deep collaboration. During the peace, Alex agreed. Before Proxima, they followed the pulsing lights deeper into the facility, guided by the strange logic of the station itself. The damaged data core grew warmer in Alex's pocket, as if responding to something in their surroundings. It knows where we need to go, he realized, following the heat signature. It's leading us. The corridor opened into a vast chamber at the heart of the station. Alex stopped abruptly, his mind struggling to comprehend what he was seeing. At the center of the room hung a sphere of swirling energy, neither solid nor liquid, but something between states of matter. Within it, fractals of reality folded and unfolded in patterns too complex for the human mind to track. What is it? He whispered, though somehow he already knew. Not a weapon, Talia replied, her voice filled with awe and horror in equal measure. A gateway. As they watched, the sphere pulsed, and within its depths, Alex glimpsed other worlds, versions of Earth and Arxa, where things had happened differently, where peace had endured, where war had consumed everything. Infinite variations of their shared history, playing out across a multiverse of possibilities. They found a way to access parallel realities, Alex said as understanding dawned. That's why they needed the war, to funnel resources into this project without oversight. Talia moved closer to the sphere, her natural bioluminescence responding to its energy, not just access. Look. She pointed to mechanisms surrounding the sphere, cooling systems and power conduits large enough to channel the energy of a small sun. They're trying to manipulate these other realities, to weaponize them. The data core in Alex's pocket burned hot now, almost too painful to carry. He withdrew it, and it glowed intensely in the presence of the sphere, information scrolling across its fractured surface too rapidly to read. The final phase initiates today, Talia translated, her expression growing increasingly alarmed as she interpreted the data. They're going to use this to destroy all versions of our worlds where peace was achieved. To ensure war is the only possible outcome across the multiverse. Why? Alex demanded, though he wasn't sure if Talia had the answer. What could possibly be worth that? Before she could respond, the chamber's main doors slid open. Alex raised his weapon, pushing Talia behind him instinctively. But instead of Harrison or armed soldiers, a single figure entered, A woman in a lab coat, her face haggard with exhaustion, but her eyes sharp with intelligence. "Because harmony is inefficient," she said, answering Alex's question. "Because competition drives innovation. Because the strongest versions of both our species emerge through conflict, not cooperation." Alex kept his weapon trained on her. "Who are you?" "Dr. Eleanor Voss," she replied calmly, as if introducing herself at an academic conference, rather than in a secret facility at the edge of known space. "Lead scientist on Project Divergence, and you're Lieutenant Alex Miller and Princess Talia of the Seventh House." Her lips curved in a small smile. "We've been expecting you." Talia stepped forward, her royal authority evident in her bearing. "You've been manipulating us from the beginning. The data core, you wanted us to find it. To bring it here." Dr. Voss inclined her head in acknowledgement. "We needed the core's final authentication sequence. It required specific carriers, people with particular genetic signatures." Her gaze moved between them. "People with an emotional bond strong enough to overcome years of manufactured hatred." Alex felt sick as the implications became clear. "You used us." "We selected you," Dr. Voss corrected. "Both of you. Your connection during the peace negotiations wasn't accidental. Your assignments to that diplomatic mission weren't random. Your entire relationship was engineered to create the perfect vessels for the final key." The sphere pulsed again, more violently this time, reality fracturing and reforming around it. Through its churning depths, Alex could see glimpses of worlds burning, of planets torn apart, of civilizations collapsing as the boundaries between dimensions weakened. "It's already starting," Dr. Voss said, satisfaction evident in her voice. "The purge of inefficient realities. Soon, only the strongest versions of our species will remain, forged in the crucible of endless conflict." The data core in Alex's hand pulsed in rhythm with the sphere now, the connection between them growing stronger. He could feel it pulling at him, urging him toward the gateway. Beside him, Talia trembled with the same compulsion, her eyes reflecting the swirling chaos of the sphere. "We have to destroy it," Talia whispered, her voice trained with the effort of resisting the pull. "All of it." Alex nodded, his own will battling against the core's influence. Together, they stood at the precipice of a decision that would affect not just their worlds, but countless versions of reality. Behind them, Dr. Voss watched with the detached interest of a scientist observing a critical experiment. "You can't stop it," she said simply. "It's too late. The process has begun." But as Alex looked at Talia, at the determination in her eyes, at the strength that had carried her through 5 years of a war she never believed in, he found his resolve hardening. They had been manipulated, used as pawns in a game larger than they could have imagined. But they were not powerless. Not anymore. "Together," he asked Talia, the word carrying the weight of their shared past and the promise of whatever future might remain to them. She took his hand, twining her fingers with his. Together. The sphere pulsed once more, reality trembling on the edge of catastrophic change, as Alex and Talia made their final stand against those who would sacrifice everything for power. The damaged data core grew hotter in Alex's palm, its crystalline structure beginning to fracture further under the pressure of the sphere's pulsating energy. Behind them, Dr. Voss tapped commands into a wrist console, her calm demeanor at odds with the chaos unfolding around them. "You've got it all wrong," Alex said, fighting against the pull of the gateway. "Strength doesn't come from endless conflict. It comes from overcoming it." Dr. Voss shook her head, looking at him with something like pity. A pleasant fiction told by those afraid to face evolutionary truth. "Our research across multiple realities proves it. The versions of our species that achieve greatness are forged through struggle, not cooperation." "Your research is flawed," Talia countered, her royal training evident in the steadiness of her voice despite the strain. "You see only what you wish to see." The sphere surged, reality rippling outward in concentric waves that distorted the very air around them. Through the churning energy, Alex glimpsed fragmented scenes, Human and Arcseni ships battling above unfamiliar worlds, cities burning under strange skies, but also, more fleetingly, moments of peace, joint colonies, shared technological marvels, children of both species playing together under alien suns. Look, he urged, pointing toward these briefer visions. Look at what you're destroying. Aberrations, Dr. Voss dismissed with a wave of her hand. Evolutionary dead ends. The multiverse corrects for weakness. And who are you to decide what's weak? Talia demanded, her natural bioluminescence flaring with emotion. What gives you the right? Knowledge. Vision. Dr. Voss straightened, abandoning her console to approach them. Despite the danger, there was no fear in her eyes, only the cold certainty of fanaticism. Do you know how many realities we've studied? How many versions of history we've observed? This isn't a choice made lightly, but a conclusion reached through rigorous analysis. As she spoke, additional personnel entered the chamber, a mix of human and Arcsani scientists and security, their uniforms lacking any national or planetary insignia. They moved to control stations around the perimeter, monitoring the gateway's increasing instability. She's stalling, Talia whispered to Alex, keeping us talking while the process completes. Alex nodded imperceptibly, gauging their options. His military-grade blaster wouldn't be enough against the security team, and even if they could somehow overpower them, they had no idea how to shut down the gateway. The data core continued to burn in his hand, its connection to the sphere growing stronger with each passing second. The core, he murmured. They needed to complete the process. That's why they lured us here. Talia's eyes widened with sudden understanding. Then we don't give it to them. Before Alex could respond, the chamber shuddered violently. Alarms blared as the station's sensors detected approaching vessels. Multiple ships dropping out of jump space, one of the technicians reported. Both human and Arcsani signatures. Dr. Voss's composure finally cracked. Harrison was supposed to stop them. How did they find us? The broadcast. Alex realized, hope surging within him. Enough of it got through. They followed us here. Dr. Voss recovered quickly, turning to her security team. Initiate defense protocols. Nothing can interfere at this stage. She fixed her gaze on Alex and Talia. Give me the core. Now, or I'll have it taken from you. The armed guards advanced, weapons raised. Alex shifted slightly, placing himself between them and Talia, though he knew it was a futile gesture. There were too many and nowhere to run. The sphere pulsed again, more violently this time, and Alex felt something change in the data core. A resonance that traveled up his arm and into his chest, as if the device were somehow connecting with him on a cellular level. Beside him, Talia gasped, evidently experiencing the same sensation. It's choosing, she whispered, her voice filled with wonder and terror. The core is making a choice. Dr. Voss's eyes narrowed. Stop them. Take the core. As the guards rushed forward, the sphere's energy surged outward in a blinding flash, enveloping Alex and Talia in a cocoon of shifting reality. Within this protected space, time seemed to slow, the outside world reduced to blurred shapes, moving at a fraction of normal speed. What's happening? Alex asked, his voice sounding strange to his own ears, as if coming from both near and far simultaneously. The gateway, Talia answered, looking around in amazement. It's showing us possibilities. The space around them, filled with overlapping images, countless versions of themselves from across the multiverse. Alex and Talia as diplomats, as enemies, as strangers, as something more than friends. Versions where they never met, where one or both had died, where they fought on the same side from the beginning. An infinite tapestry of what was, what is, and what could be. This is what they wanted to control, Alex realized. Not just to destroy peaceful realities, but to select which versions of history survive. Playing gods, Talia agreed, her anger evident despite the otherworldly calm of their bubble. deciding the fate of countless beings across all possible worlds. The damaged core pulsed between them, its fractures now glowing with the same energy as the sphere. Through these cracks, Alex could see something new emerging, a different kind of code, more organic and fluid than the data they'd originally discovered. "It's not just data," he said slowly. "It's alive, somehow, sentient." Talia nodded. "A safeguard, perhaps, built by whoever created this technology in the first place." Beyond their protective bubble, they could see Dr. Voss shouting orders, her security team attempting to breach the energy field without success. The sphere at the center of the chamber had begun to destabilize, reality fracturing around it in ways that even the Cygnus team hadn't anticipated. "We need to make a choice," Talia said, her eyes meeting Alex's with an intensity that transcended their strange surroundings. "The core brought us here for a reason. It chose us." Alex looked down at the crystalline device, now pulsing in rhythm with both their heartbeats. "What choice? What can we possibly do against this?" "Accept our connection," Talia replied, placing her hand over his around the core. "The one thing they couldn't fully engineer or control, even when they tried. Whatever exists between us, it's real, Alex. It always has been, across every reality where we found each other." The bubble of energy surrounding them began to contract as the sphere's instability increased. Through the chaos, Alex could see the approaching ships engaging with the station's defenses, human and Arcsani vessels fighting alongside each other rather than against one another. Their broadcast had done more than reveal the conspiracy. It had created an impromptu alliance. "It's not enough," he said, watching the battle unfold in slow motion. "Even if they defeat the station's defenses, the gateway is already activating. Realities are being destroyed as we speak." Talia's grip tightened around his. "Then we use the core. We use our connection. We show the gateway a different possibility." The core flared between their joined hands, responding to her words. In that moment, Alex understood what she was suggesting. Something impossible, yet somehow the only option left to them. "If we do this," he said, "we might not survive it." A sad smile played across Talia's features. "After 5 years of a war neither of us believed in, is survival really what matters most? Or is it what we leave behind? What we make possible?" Outside their bubble, Dr. Voss had abandoned her attempts to breach the energy field and was now frantically working to accelerate the gateway's program, even as the sphere grew increasingly unstable. The station shook with the impact of weapons fire from the approaching fleet, systems failing throughout the facility. "Together then," Alex said, his decision made. "One last time." Talia nodded, her eyes reflecting the swirling energies surrounding them. "For all the versions of us that never got their chance, for all the peace that was stolen." They pressed the core between their palms, its heat now intense but somehow not burning. The crystalline structure began to dissolve, its energy flowing into both of them, connecting them to each other and to the gateway beyond. Alex gasped as memories, not his own, flooded his consciousness. Talia's childhood on Arxa, her training as a diplomat, her grief when her brother died at Proxima, her years commanding forces against humans while secretly searching for a way to end the conflict. And he knew she was experiencing the same. His academy days, his excitement at being chosen for the first diplomatic mission to Arxa, his confusion and sense of betrayal after Proxima, his gradual hardening into a soldier who followed orders without question. The bubble around them expanded suddenly, pushing outward to encompass the entire chamber. Dr. Voss and her team froze in place as the wave of energy washed over them, their expressions locked in masks of shock and fear. The gateway sphere at the center pulsed erratically, caught between the program it had been given and the new influence now exerted by Alex and Talia. "What are you doing?" Dr. Voss's voice reached them, as if through water, distorted and distant. "You'll destroy everything." "Not destroy," Talia answered, her voice echoing with power not entirely her own. "Restore." The core had completely dissolved now, its energy merging with their bodies. using them as conduits to the gateway. Through their connected minds, Alex and Talia reached toward the sphere, not physically, but with something beyond consciousness, with the truth of what they had been to each other, what they could have been, what they still might be in worlds untouched by engineered hatred. The sphere responded, its chaotic pulsing gradually steadying, the fractures in reality beginning to heal rather than widen. Through its depths, Alex could see the multiple versions of their worlds shifting, timelines reorganizing themselves not around conflict but around possibility. "It's working," he whispered, though the effort of maintaining their connection to the gateway was already draining him beyond endurance. His vision began to dim around the edges, his heartbeat slowing as the energy coursing through him demanded more than his body could give. Beside him, Talia too was fading, her natural luminescence flickering like a candle in a strong wind. Yet her grip on his hand remained firm, her presence in his mind unwavering as they continued to feed their shared truth into the gateway. Dr. Voss screamed in rage and disbelief as her life's work unraveled before her eyes, as the carefully curated hatred between species gave way to something else, not a guarantee of peace, but a chance for it, a restoration of choice. The station's systems began to fail catastrophically as the gateway's energy surged beyond containment. Explosions rippled through distant sections, the artificial gravity fluctuating wildly. Through it all, Alex and Talia remained at the eye of the storm, their joined hands the only anchoring point in a sea of chaos. "I can't hold on much longer," Alex admitted, feeling his consciousness beginning to slip away. "Just a little more," Talia urged, her voice growing fainter. "We're almost there." The sphere gave one final, massive pulse, energy radiating outward in a shockwave that enveloped the entire station. In that blinding moment of pure potential, Alex felt rather than saw the multiverse shift, countless realities realigning, the artificial divisions between them healing, the enforced conflict giving way to open possibility. And then, darkness. Consciousness returned to Alex in fragments, the steady beep of monitoring equipment, the antiseptic smell of a medical facility, the low murmur of voices nearby. He tried to open his eyes, but they felt impossibly heavy, as if weighted down by more than just exhaustion. When he finally managed to force them open, the harsh white light sent pain lancing through his skull. "Easy," a familiar voice cautioned. "You've been unconscious for almost 2 weeks." Alex turned his head slightly, wincing at the effort, to find Commander Rice sitting beside his bed. Her uniform was different, the aggressive military styling replaced by something more reminiscent of the pre-war diplomatic corps. "Talia." It was the first word from his lips, his voice rough from disuse. Rice's expression softened. "She's alive. Recovering, like you. The Arcseni physiology responds differently to what you both experienced." She leaned forward. "Do you remember what happened?" Remember. How could he ever forget? The gateway, the sphere of reality-altering energy, the sensation of countless possibilities flowing through his consciousness as he and Talia attempted the impossible. But after that final pulse of energy, there was nothing but darkness. Some of it, he admitted. The station, Cygnus, did it. Destroyed, Rice confirmed. Completely. The joint fleet managed to evacuate most of the personnel before the final collapse, including you and the princess. Dr. Voss didn't make it, refused extraction, apparently. Went down with her creation. Alex tried to sit up, ignoring the protest of his body. The data core. Gone. Dissolved, according to the reports. Whatever you two did with it. Rice shook her head in something like wonder. "It changed everything, Alex." She reached for a tablet on the bedside table, activating it to display news headlines from across human and Arcseni space. Alex read them with growing disbelief. Peace talks. Resumidi after Qonas piracy expozed. Joint human and Arxanico mission to NVE stigate war crimes. Admiral Harrison, among dozens ARRESTED in ongoing UROB, MEMORIAL FOR PROXIMAVICTIMs, to be built by both species. I don't understand, Alex said, his mind struggling to process the implications. The war, it's over. Reyes nodded. Your broadcast reached farther than anyone could have anticipated. When both sides realized they'd been manipulated into conflict by the same group of conspirators, she gestured to the headlines. Let's just say it's amazing how quickly 5 years of hatred can dissolve when people learn they've been played for fools. But the gateway, Alex pressed. The multiverse, what happened to all those other realities they were destroying? Reyes's expression turned thoughtful. That's where it gets strange. The scientists who've been studying the data from Cygnus say that whatever you and Princess Talia did, it didn't just stop the process, it reversed it. The boundaries between realities that had been damaged are healing. The natural order of possibility is restoring itself. She smiled slightly. At least, that's how they explained it to me. Alex closed his eyes, overwhelmed. They had succeeded then. At what cost, he still didn't know, but they had stopped the conspiracy from dictating which versions of their species would survive. I need to see her, he said, attempting again to sit up. Reyes put a restraining hand on his shoulder. And you will. But you both need to recover first. Whatever passed between you, and that gateway nearly killed you both. Her expression grew serious. The medical team has never seen anything like it. Your cellular structure was altered. They're still running tests to understand the full implications. A knock at the door interrupted them. A young lieutenant entered, looking somewhat nervous to be in the presence of what Alex was beginning to suspect had become something of a legend. Commander, the Arcseni delegation has arrived for the briefing, the lieutenant reported. And the princess is asking about Lieutenant Miller again. Reyes smiled. Tell her he's awake and as stubborn as ever. After the lieutenant departed, she turned back to Alex. Rest. That's an order. There will be time for reunions and debriefings later. Alex wanted to argue, but exhaustion was already pulling him back towards sleep. As consciousness began to fade again, he found himself reaching out mentally, searching for the connection that had formed between him and Talia in those final moments at Cygnus. To his surprise, he felt something, distant but unmistakable, a presence that recognized his touch and responded with warmth. She was there. Different, changed as he was changed, but alive. It was enough for now. When Alex next awoke, the room was dimly lit, the monitoring equipment silenced. Night had fallen outside his window, stars visible in a clear sky that somehow seemed more vibrant than he remembered. He wasn't alone. Talia sat in the chair Reyes had occupied earlier, her tall frame looking somewhat incongruous in the human-proportioned furniture. Her skin's natural luminescence was subdued, but still cast a faint glow in the darkened room. Her eyes, when they met his, held the same depth he remembered, but now carried something new, a knowledge beyond words, shared only between them. You shouldn't be here, he said softly. You should be recovering. I am recovering, she replied, her translator giving her voice the same musical quality he'd first heard 5 years ago on Arxa, just not where they told me to. Despite everything, Alex found himself smiling, still not following orders. Not when they're foolish ones. She leaned forward, studying his face. How much do you remember? Everything, up to the end. Then nothing. He hesitated. But I can feel something. A connection. Like an echo of what happened at the gateway. Talia nodded, unsurprised. The scientists call it quantum entanglement. Our consciousness, our very cells, synchronized at a fundamental level by our interaction with the gateway. A small smile played across her features. My people have a different word for it, one that predates our technology from the old religions. What word? Soul-binding, she said simply. When two beings become connected across all possible realities. Alex absorbed this, finding that it felt right in a way scientific explanations couldn't capture. And the gateway, the other realities. Safe as far as anyone can tell. Whatever we did, whatever the core helped us do, it restored the natural balance. She looked out at the stars. Out there, in countless versions of our worlds, other versions of us are making their own choices, finding their own paths. Some to war, some to peace, but by their own will, not by someone else's design. The knowledge settled over Alex with a sense of completion. It was worth it, then. Yes. Talia's gaze returned to him, intense and certain. Though I admit, I'm glad this version of us survived to see what comes next. And what does come next? Alex asked, finally giving voice to the question that loomed largest in his mind. After conspiracy and war, after sacrifice and revelation, what remained for them? Talia rose from her chair and moved to sit on the edge of his bed, her cool hand finding his. The contact sent a now familiar resonance through him, their connection humming with recognition. Peace negotiations begin next month, she said. Both sides are requesting our presence. Apparently, saving the multiverse earns one a certain diplomatic credibility. Her expression turned more serious. It won't be easy. 5 years of war leaves deep wounds. Many still grieve, many still anger. The conspiracy may be exposed, but its effects linger. But there's a chance now, Alex said. A real one. Yes, her fingers intertwined with his, a bridge between species that had once seemed impossible. And beyond that, there's us. Whatever we choose to become in this reality, we helped save. Outside, the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon, stars fading as a new day emerged. Within that simple moment, a human and an Arcsani watching a sunrise together lay all the possibility they had fought to preserve. Not a guarantee of harmony, but the freedom to seek it. Together, then? Alex asked, echoing the question that had carried them through darkness. Talia's eyes met his violet depths, reflecting the growing light. Together, she affirmed, across this reality and beyond. The sun crested the horizon, bathing them in the promise of a new beginning, one they had created not just for themselves, but for all the versions of their peoples across the infinite tapestry of existence. In that quiet hospital room, as day broke over a world stepping cautiously toward peace, two beings once divided by engineered hatred found something that transcended species, transcended conflict, transcended even the boundaries of reality itself. They found hope.